Hey folks, welcome in to the Naked Financial Truth. Woo! This is the first episode since August 2020, Matt.
Can you believe it?
Again, Matt Nicosia over there, Coach Pete right here. You know, we touched on one of the big problems in the financial world. It was naked shorting of stocks. And before we get to that, though, we need to talk about the sponsor of the show, don't we?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome today. We've got our sponsor, Liquid Currency from Paso Robles, a phenomenal Cabernet. From what I've heard, it's amazing, great to drink. Takes care of our show today, one of our great sponsors. We recommend everyone get out and get some of this Liquid Currency. Make sure you tell them it was referred by, boom, the Naked Financial News.
Naked Financial Truth. All right, Matt, it's nothing funny about what we see happening in the financial world sometimes, too. The average investor is getting killed by big multi-million-dollar conglomerates that are shorting stocks, but they're doing it the wrong way. How are they doing it?
Well, it's not just they're doing it the wrong way. They're hurting the average investor. What I'm going to compare this to is thievery. I'm going to call this the Prince John thievery of old English days. Now, Robin Hood was supposed to help out the victims.
That's what they said.
Unfortunately, today's Robin Hood was part of the problem. We're going to talk about that.
He's robbing the hood. He's robbing everybody in the neighborhood.
He's robbing everybody in the neighborhood. But your point
Yep.
is, when we talked about this, ladies and gentlemen, we made this a point. If you remember, we actually said there are people selling naked and not covering their positions. Now, what happened, I'd say, end of last year, or beginning of last year? You had GameStop, AMC, and what did the Reddit boys expose? Do you remember that?
Yeah, they exposed a lot of the bad things going on. And so the little people in America got all together and started buying those stocks way up.
And they exposed
the shorts.
But they exposed one key piece, that the amount of stock which was sold into the market was 3 to 5 times the actual amount of stock in the market.
Now, explain that to the who's watching, the people watching this. What does that mean? What do you mean when you say 3 times more?
So when a company registers on an exchange, they focus and they put their stock deposits in what's called the Depository Trust Corporation, DTCC.
Okay.
And their job is to make sure that the stock which is given to them to deposit is now the stock that's available to be sold or bought on the exchange. That is regulated by FINRA, who regulates the broker-dealers, and the SEC is supposed to make sure that the companies are being proper compliant in their reporting, and the individual investor is supposed to be able to rely that what they're buying is actual shares that the company has put out to offer.
Okay.
You've heard the old adage, more buying than selling, the stock goes up.
Yep.
More selling than buying, the stock goes down. But what if you have a seller who has the infinite ability to print as much stock as they want, so there's never enough stock to be bought?
But that doesn't sound legal to me.
It's not.
Okay, so how are they getting away with it?
Well, that is a very good question. In fact, Gary Gensler last October talked about this.
Okay.
He said that dark pools, and I'll explain what dark pools are.
I've heard of dark pools mentioned on CNBC every now and then, dark pools.
So dark pools, Gary Gensler said that they are not transparent and we don't know where and who is behind the volume.
Okay.
That's the first key, and he's correct. If he could make the dark pools be transparent, you'd see a lot of this change.
Well, they wouldn't be dark anymore.
Now, the dark pools have been created they've been around for a long time. And large institutions have used them to do what's called off-exchange transactions, where they don't have to pay the cost to do a buy or sell order through the exchange, and sometimes you get a better price, and they play and manipulate with it. But the rule is you're only supposed to be able to short a share if you actually have a share to deposit.
Correct, and that's what the average individual investor thinks. When they see a sell, they think someone must not like the stock, or they're shorting it, so they're doing the inverse reaction of what we want to have happen when we're buying a stock and hoping it goes up. It goes down when they short it.
But what's been proven is these institutionals have, through the dark pool, been lending a stock to be sold, then lending it again, then lending it again.
Even though they don't have anything to lend, though. They're lending phony stock certificates.
Because the market maker rule is a market maker has to reasonably believe that their client can have access to that stock to sell it.
But if you're selling more stock than even is available on the float, then they should have a reasonable belief that they're not doing that.
You would think so.
Yes.
You would think so. Now, there's a couple different groups out there, Share Intel and a couple others recently, that have been now able to analyze and give us analytics on the dark pool. And all this is thanks to GameStop last year.
Okay, so that exposed a lot of the dirty business that was going out there.
Now you're seeing companies that say, wait a second, I know people have bought more stock than we've even held at Depository Trust.
Yeah.
What the mother trucker is going on?
Yep.
And now they're analyzing it and they're able to force coverage and finally, hopefully soon, hold those responsible who are basically printing more shares. It's like printing money without company authorization. And all they're doing is selling into the buying brought in and forcing that stock down. It's estimated about $3 trillion has been taken out through illegal naked shorting, through the dark pools, since 2008.
That's a lot of money in what, 15 years? Less than 15 years. Well, right around 15 years, yeah. 15
it's
years.
Probably one of the biggest robberies the world's ever seen.
All right, so you're in a company, you believe in the company, you know the company's got a good product and they have a solution to a lot of things out there that need to be solutionized. And all of a sudden the stock starts going down for no reason. Could it be naked shorts or just someone shorting? How do you find that? How can you know the difference? And how does someone contact someone to find out if their company's being nakedly shorted?
Well, the reality is you don't know the difference as a common investor.
Okay.
And quite frankly, even some of the level 3 traders don't really know. Especially if those trades go through the dark pool, they really have no idea to know exactly how much has been shorted and whether what they're basically buying is a shorted or we call them a hypothecated shorted share.
Okay.
Now, over time, these new services can track that and say, okay, this broker is short here, but they only give that information to the company. So if you're a shareholder, a significant shareholder, and you believe in a company, you have the right to get a hold of management, say they have a fiduciary responsibility to you to double check and use all they can within their power to make sure that the shares you bought are real shares. They have a fiduciary responsibility for this. I would encourage everybody, if you have a serious position in a company or any position, and you believe that the stock may be naked shorted, contact management. I actually believe what's going to happen is boards of directors are going to have to put a new policy in place, not just for cybersecurity, which they're pushing, not just for ESG, but if you really want to protect the SEC, if you really want to protect people, shareholder protection on naked shorting. Companies can hire different groups, and these groups can monitor the trading. And these groups can say these shares are these companies oversold their float by so much, two or three or four times. Because the problem is when you cause a short squeeze, stock runs up and they short again.
Oh yeah, they bring it
and
right
then
back
they
down.
short again.
So it's a yo-yo.
Companies need to put a long-term policy in place for shareholder protection against naked shorts. You have to. It is the only way, unless NASDAQ, NYSE are ready to go blockchain, where you cannot sell unless you own it. Now, Upstream, which is an alternative stock exchange, official stock exchange of the Seychelles, they're a blockchain exchange. You cannot short if you don't own it. You can't do the hypothecated naked shorting.
See, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that's what the average investor thinks is already happening. They say, well, gosh, the SEC is going to protect me. They're not going to let dirty pool be played on my account. And that's been happening to way too many individual investors and smaller companies.
That's been going on for years. I've taken quite a few companies public, done NASDAQ transactions, and as a owner, as an operator, as an executive of companies, you're always wondering, why is there way more selling than buying when you're analyzing? Because companies get the DTC sheets. Companies get to know who has stock where. And if companies properly track that volume with groups like Share Intel and others that track it, they will show that that reporting is not happening properly. FINRA doesn't get all the reports via dark pool. They get what's done to them non-dark pool, and if a FINRA representative within the dark pool, options to share that information. Because if FINRA does know about it, they need to be changed. They should be held accountable and go to jail as well.
Yeah, because if somebody knows about this and they're not calling attention to it, they're just as guilty as the people doing it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that is
All
a
right,
major
well, the
issue.
solution is to, step one, what should somebody do if they feel their company's being nakedly shorted?
Contact the company and say, what shareholder protection mechanisms do you have in place to make sure there's no naked shorting involved?
And most of them won't have that in there.
Correct.
And so we need to have that. Every company should have that in there, a policy to deal with naked shorting.
I think that needs to be a huge. So shareholder activists need to make that a part of their responsibility now. Hold management accountable, because some management doesn't care.
Yeah.
Some management just keeps hitting their wages and they keep raising capital. They raise them with 100% warrant coverage. They don't even care. They want to make sure they get paid. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if a management is truly responsible, they will put in place via their board shareholder protection policies. Now, a good example is GNS. They're an NYSE company, Genesis. Ticker symbol is GNS. They actually put a new policy in place to deal with this. They've put a specific part of their board to go after investigative researchers and try to bust and keep the traders honest.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it hurts the individual who buys with their 401k. Because they're saying, I'm going to buy this company, but they're buying shares that were never issued by the company. And these naked shorters.
But they don't know that.
No, and the naked shorters just taking their money.
Yeah. Wow.
And it doesn't, so that is a problem.
So
you should not be
shares.
able to sell what you don't own.
Exactly.
And let's say it's a short, which you're allowed to short 1-to-1, but these guys are shorting 1-to-1, 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5, just constantly lending it out, and knowing as long as they keep pushing the stock down, they don't have to cover because they're in the dark pool. That's got to end. Pretty soon, no investor is going to trust the U.S. exchanges.
People don't already.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Actually, Canada only allows as much as 5% of all the trades to be done in dark pool. Gary Gensler said, U.S. is 60% of all trades are dark pool trades. Ladies and gentlemen, how can you have any transparency from that? It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Nor can you have truth in transactions, and then we're exposed as a naked financial truth.
Well, but selling shares they don't own is like someone advertising a used Corvette for sale at a nice price. You call them and you negotiate and you arrive on a price. They say, send me a check. You send them a check. You never get the Corvette.
That's exactly what it is.
What's happening these days.
And in the
they go to
financial
jail
industry,
for that.
they call that FTD, failure to deliver.
Yep.
So
I call it thievery.
I call it robbing.
Yeah, there you go.
Robbing. And it hurts companies, because if the amount of investors that actually did buy the stock truly bought it from the company company would have a higher stock price and a market cap allows them to raise capital and preserve wealth versus have it destroyed, which is what's happening in about 99% of the companies in America today.
It's hard enough for the individual investor to make money, even playing fair, but playing against the rules when somebody has the deck stacked against them and they're going into a stock and they have no chance of success. It really infuriates me, Matt. It really does. And so a lot of people out there they've got their retirement money tied up in a lot of stock, and unfortunately, some of that stock could have dirty pool could be playing there. So we need to make sure to give the average investor a route to turn the tables on these bad guys.
And I would focus on the companies that are doing shareholder protection.
Yeah.
Those are the companies that are going to be hiring the firms that are going to be able to cause those naked shorts, or at least try to maintain them, because until the SEC changes the rules where the market maker is forced to give delivery, not the end client, but the market maker is responsible. If not, the market maker goes down.
Correct. And
that transparency opens up. You may cover a short, then there's someone else, then they're going to keep shorting. It's going to constantly be a process. Or we go to a blockchain exchange. So companies, individual investors look for companies that are doing that shareholder protection. Not that it's going to mean anything, but it's a better chance to not feel naked when you're investing.
Something to think about, folks. We'll see you next time right here on The Naked Financial Truth.
Woo!
And that's a wrap.
And that's a wrap.